Alright guys, so in today's video we will be discussing about AWS EC2 instances. Alright, and then I have prepared a kind of small architecture, and then we will also be discussing about Amazon VPC, which is virtual private cloud, and then we will be creating different type of subnets, and then private subnet and the public subnet. We will try to deploy EC2 instances in the public subnet and the private subnet, and we will also go over the flow of traffic, how to enable the flow of traffic inside these EC2 instances in private and public subnet. So this is kind of a 5000 overview diagram that I have created here. So in this diagram, if you see, there are multiple components involved, right? And then just to make this video a little fancy, I have made these arrows and everything, right? These are flowing realistically. So you see, there are several components involved, resources involved, cloud resources involved in order to deploy this architecture in the AWS. So first we have VPC. Right, so I'll go one by one to the components. I'll give an introduction, and then we will deep dive later in the video, other part of video, where we will go over into AWS resources and try implement and deploying them. So first of all, we have Amazon VPC, which is virtual private cloud, isolated logical network assigned to you in the AWS infra, where your all resources can be logically connected, right? And then you have subnets. So let's say, assume that Amazon VPC is a numbering system from 1 to 100, but you want to create separate, you want to divide 100 numbers into n number of groups. So let's say you assign 1 to 20 number and you call it public subnet. Okay, so that's another logical grouping inside your Amazon VPC. So that's how you do the grouping. Let's say if you want to expose something to public, you will create a different subnet, right? So though that subnet will have a different IP address space, and you can deploy your things to your subnet, and then you can do a whitelisting, etc. All security group, you can assign security groups to that subnet, and you can define the routes for that subnet. All those things you can do within your subnet. Then we have public subnet and the private subnet. So we will be creating two subnet as part of this exercise. One instance that I do not want to expose to my public, right, publicly. So that instance I will deploy in the private subnet, and then I will create another Amazon EC2 instance in order to access this restricted private EC2 instance, right? So this EC2 instance will be acting as a jump server for me. Okay, so because I only want to use this server within my virtual private cloud. I don't want to use it from my local computer. So that's the security restriction I want to implement here. All right. Then we have internet gateway. In order to enable the internet access into your VPC, you need to have your internet gateway. So the way it will work is from outside world, the traffic will flow to your internet gateway, and from internet gateway it will be rerouted to your Amazon EC2 instance. All right. And then this the route I just spoke about, your public to internet gateway to your EC2. This route will be defined in somewhere. That somewhere is known as your route table. So that's the route table which has the routes defined. And then we have NAT Gateway. NAT Gateway is used to enable inbound internet connectivity in your Amazon EC2 in your private subnet. All right, especially for private subnet. So because in the private subnet, what we will do, how we will restrict, we will do application security group. So there is something application security group. I will also, let me write it down, security group, right? And then I will use let's say I will use the security group. So there will be two security group, one security group here, all right, and then one security group here. All right, so all this traffic will be flowing. Yeah, so internet gateway will have will go through the security group of public subnet, and then the traffic will flow from the NAT gateway to your Amazon EC2 via your this security group of private subnet. Alright, so this is security group where you define all your restrictions, that you don't want to allow SSH, you want to allow SSH, you don't want to allow HTTP, all those inbound connections and outbound connections you want to open, you don't want to open, all those things you define in your security groups. Alright, so now let's move on, and then okay, there is some diagram mistake. Yeah, now it's correct. Okay, so now let's go to your AWS cloud and try deploying this architecture, and then we will do a deep dive and go through all the cloud resources. Alright guys, so I will go to my AWS and I'll go to VPC section. I'll create a VPC, although I already have VPCs, but I'll create, just for the exercise, I'll create a new VPC. So I'll call this VPC as my, let's say, learning lecture VPC. Alright, and then I'll define a seeder block. So this is the IP address space I have to define here. So I'll say 24. Alright, so now you have IPAM as well. So this is IPAM is a group of IP addresses. When you are dealing with organization level cloud resource, you might have to use many IPs. So what you do, you create a pool of IP addresses, and then you, from that pool, you pick up your IP address. But here we are not using that, so I'll simply assign IP seeder range here, and then I will, and if you go to VPC and more, it will automatically create subnets and all routes for you. We don't, if we do that, we will lose all the important concepts to understand, so we will not do that. We will simply say VPC only, and we will create your create our VPC. Alright, so seems like we do have VPC, and then if you see, along with the VPC creation, there is a route table also has been created. So if you go to route table, you will see that we will have routes. So it says destination. So currently it has a default route, right? It has a default route where we say that whatever comes in the within VPC is pass it to local, which is active, and we don't have any other route, right? Go back to our VPC, which is learning lecture VPC. Now let's create two subnets. Okay, now I'll create one subnet. I'll learning lectures, and then I'll create public subnet. I will not keep any availability zone here. Alright, so I'll say 24, and then I will do a range. So 0 28, let's say. So it will have 16 IPs. So the total IPs will be inside the total number of IPs that I can use inside within my public subnet will be 16 IPs. All right. So I'll create this subnet. Okay. So seems like this subnet has been created. All right. So now what I could do is, if I go back to my VPC, I'll go back here, Internet Gateway. Okay, so this VPC has my public subnet. So that if you see that that's the flow basically, the connectivity, right? So you have public subnet, and this public subnet will be governed using a route table. All the routes, right? All the traffic flow will be governed using this route table. So I'll go back, and then I will, let me pick up this VPC here, and then I'll go back, and then I'll create another subnet. I will pick up learning lecture. Alright guys, so this I will name it as private subnet. And then I'll give the IP range .64.28. Alright, so my private subnet will also have 16 IPs, right? The maximum IP is allowed 16 IP. I will create this subnet as well. So as per our architecture, I have created this VPC, this part, and then this part and this part, right? So now I will create one Amazon EC2 instance for me. Okay, I will go back. So I'll go to my VPC. I'll go to here and see my this learning lecture VPC has these two subnets, private subnet and then public subnet. All right, and then these subnets will be governed using this route table. Okay, now what I'll do, I will create a different route table for my private subnet and I'll keep one for my public subnet. All right, so I'll go here. So or maybe I can create it later, because first let me provision the EC2 instance, right? There's no point of creating the route table as of now. Now what I'll do, I'll go to EC2. I'll go here and then I'll say launch EC2 instance. Okay, and then I'll call learning lecture VPC. I'll say public. Alright, so now I will select this AWS by default image. I'll use all these free tier and then I use the key1. I already have a key pair. Okay, key pair. So this is the key to access the EC2 instance later, right? To get it connected using SSH. So now it says security group. You create a security group. So what I'll do, I will say, okay, create a security group and then allow SSH access from anywhere. So when I say anywhere, from my local computer, from the internet, from anywhere, right? And then I allow HTTP and HTTPS as well. Okay, and let me select the VPC, learning lecture VPC, and I'll select the subnet, public subnet. Okay, now I will also enable the public IP. So it will automatically assign an elastic public IP to my EC2 instance. So I can connect that using, so that will act as a first point for my EC2 instance. Now I'll launch my instance. Okay, so my instance is ready here. All right, so it's in pending state. Give some time to get it ready. All right, guys. So this instance is ready now. Okay, so if you go inside, you see it is connected to my learning lecture VPC, and this is inside my public subnet. All right. Now, if you go to okay, so there is no public IP assigned, right? Okay, so there is no public IP assigned yet. There is a public IP right here, but it's not elastic IP. You can create an elastic IP. So the basic difference between public IP and elastic IP, private IP is your private IP, which is internal and specifically subjected to your VPC, right? However, public IP is something which you could use to access a resource from outside world. Now the difference between elastic IP and public IP is, let's say you shut down your resource, and then next time when you run your resource, you will again get a public IP. However, that public IP will be different from the last one. So, but if you want to keep a static IP address for your resource in AWS cloud, you have to use elastic IP address. So that's the basic difference between public and the elastic. So here we have public IP. It will suffice our requirement. Although if you want to have an elastic IP, you can create an elastic IP. All right. Then if you go to monitoring security, you will see that this is the security group, which is and these are the inbound rules. All right, so SSH and all these ports are open to get it connect from the public internet. So we were able to complete this part. So we created this, and we created this. All right, now let's try to connect with this instance from our local computer. Okay, I'll go here, I'll try to connect, and then I already have key one pair. So I'll say yeah, K1. I already have this key. So I'll say this. I will try to connect with my, because if I went to connect to my instance and then I clicked on SSH client and then I copied this example. Okay, I'll click enter. So you see, this will get timeout. This won't work. And now there is an important concept to understand why it is not working, right? So you see, this will get timeout after some time. So reason it's not working, let's go back to our diagram. So that's the source of truth. You see, in order to flow the traffic from outside world, the internet, to your VPC, within your VPC to Amazon EC2 instance, you need to have an internet gateway, right? You have the security group, but you need to have an internet gateway. That is the reason that's how from your traffic from internet will flow inside your VPC, and within VPC to your EC2 instance inside your public subnet. So we have not created an internet gateway yet. That is the reason we are not able to connect with this Amazon EC2 instance. So let's now create one internet gateway. All right, so you see it's not connected. So I'll go back, and then I will go back. There are several. Yeah, I'll go back here. I'll go to VPC, and then I will go to, I'll select this. I'll go to internet gateways. I'll create one internet gateway, right? So I'll say learning lecture internet gateway. Okay, and then I'll create this. Okay, so now it's in detached state. It's not attached to any VPC yet. So I will have to attach to this to a VPC. So I'll connect this learning lecture VPC. All right, I'll attach this internet gateway. So you see, we were able to finish this part, this internet gateway part, right? So this whole process is finished now. So now let's go back and see if I'm able to connect to my VPC. Now there is another concept. We won't be able to connect, right? But I want you guys to understand. See, although I have created the internet gateway, right? You see, I'm still not able to connect. Although I have created this part, right? This part, this internet part, then gateway. I'm not able to go inside my VPC within my public subnet. Now understand what is the problem, right? Think about it. So when you think about it, now in the beginning of video, I told you that, okay, when you have created an internet gateway, you have the resource, but you have not defined that path. How will that traffic will flow this one point to another point? You have to define that traffic, so that the definition of the routing of that network traffic has to be defined inside your route table. So that's something that we haven't done so far. So you see, I'm still not able to get connect. So what I'll do, I'll go to internet gateway. All right, I'll go to my VPC, back to my VPC. I'll go to my route table. I'll select, there will be several, but I'll select my learning lecture. So there is one, right? So I'll rename this to public route table. All right. I'll go inside, and then I'll have to add a route. I will say from outside world, which is this. So this is the IP range from the internet, the whatever traffic coming from the internet from outside my VPC. I'm saying whatever comes from outside, you move it to your internet gateway. So I will reroute everything from my outside world to my internet gateway. So that's the route I'm defining. See, so I'll say internet gateway. Okay, and then this, which internet gateway? This internet gateway. I'll say save changes. Alright, so I have defined this route properly. So now what I have to do is I have to go back and again try connect to my VPC. Alright, so I'll go back here. If I do so, alright, you see now I have connected and I'm inside my EC2 instance in public subnet. And how I made it possible, I created an Amazon EC2 instance within my public subnet, right? And then within my public subnet, from the outside world, I was not able to get connect, so I introduced something called internet gateway. So now my internet traffic will flow to the internet gateway, from internal gateway to my VPC, within VPC public subnet to my Amazon EC2 instance. Now, however, this route, whatever I said, this particular route needs to be defined in the route table here, the public route table, right? That is the reason I've shown you everything, how how the traffic is flowing. So that's how you will be able to, if I do a ping, so I have access to the internet within my EC2 instance. You see, I'm able to ping google.com from my EC2 instance. All right. So this part is over now. Alright, this particular path is over now for creating the public subnet and all those things, etc. etc. Now I'll stop this video here and create another video to understand the private subnet and the other part of enabling the private subnet and then allowing the traffic using NAT gateway to private subnet. Okay, thank you guys. Alright guys, so this is the part 2 video of deploying the EC2 instances in AWS. In the part first, we deployed this overall flow, the green box. We created the VPC, Amazon VPC. We also created public subnet in it. We also configured the route table and we also created an internet gateway, and we also configured the security group to allow SSH access from outside world to Amazon EC2. And also in the route table, we configured the route, so how the internet traffic from outside world needs to flow to internet gateway, and from internet gateway within your Amazon EC2. Now in this, as part of this video, we will be doing an exercise where we will create a private subnet. Although we have already created a private subnet. If you go to my VPC, go to subnets, I already have my private subnet, right? This private subnet has 16 IPs allowed. Now what I'll do, I'll create an EC2 instance within my private subnet, and I'll have different security group. I will have a different route table for it. All right, and then you will see how to enable internet traffic in the from incoming, from outside to inside, not inside to outside. All right, and that's how we will use the NAT gateway here. So all those exercises we will be doing as part of this video. So let's move on. So I'll go back, and then I'll go back to my EC2, and then I'll launch an instance. I'll say learning lecture private instance. Okay, and then I'll use all these things. I'll use the same key pair. I already have K1, if you are aware. That's how I was able to get connect to my public EC2 instance, which is this, right? So I'll close this. Yeah, you see I already have this k1.pem file. What I'll do is I'll select the VPC, my learning lecture VPC. This is the VPC I have created, and then I will select the private subnet. Okay, now So this is the security group for my private subnet. So I'll say private security group private subnet. All right, so now I'll copy the update description as well. Okay, so I'll allow SSH access. Interesting point is I will not allow SSH access from anywhere. That's the concept of private subnet. If I allow the access, the traffic from anywhere in the world, there is no point of call it private, right? That's the point of calling it as private subnet, making it as private subnet, because we are restricting the flow of traffic from outside. We are only telling this guy to accept traffic from trusted source. Now, what will those trusted source will be? So if you go back and see our diagram, so this private subnet will only and only accept traffic if that traffic comes from this green box. So this green box is my trusted source, because this green box, when I say this Amazon EC2 instance, right? Because this Amazon EC2 instance is within my public subnet. So I'm asking for private subnet to only access internet traffic or traffic only if that comes from the public subnet. All right, so how can I access this Amazon EC2 instance? Only if I log into my this EC2 instance, which is deployed inside public subnet. If I want to SSH do for my local computer, I can't do that because my local computer is not deployed on this Amazon VPC. All right, this Amazon EC2 instance is deployed on my Amazon VPC within the public subnet. That's the whole concept of private subnet. I'm sure you guys must be able to understand. Now I'll go back. I will say not anywhere, I'll say custom. From where I'll say if that comes from launch wizard 9, right? You see this. Now you must be wondering what is this launch wizard. So this is the application security group of your public subnet, right? If I copy this and if you go here, VPC, and then if you go to my VPC. So if you guys are not able to catch up whatever few things that I'm introducing in this video, I would suggest you to go back and have a look at my previous video that I have made in order to create the public subnet and EC2 instances, etc., etc. You will get that idea, and then we will be in good situation to relate this video with that other video. All right, so I'll select this VPC, my VPC, and then I will go to my subnet. I have public subnet and I have private subnet, and then I'll go to security groups. So I have these two security groups, right? If you search that thing, right, this is 9170 launch wizard 9. So this security group has been assigned to my public subnet. So if you go inside here, if you go inside, okay, or you can go inside to public subnet and click, and then you will see somewhere you will find this learning lecture. Route table, this is the route table. You see this, okay. Okay. Anyways, I can't see that. If I go there. All right, guys. So what I'm doing here is I'm asking to only allow access from SSH, and this SSH access should only be assigned, should only be allowed using this security group, and this security group has been assigned to my EC2 instance to public, in the public subnet. All right. So now I'll move on, and then I think I added everything, right? Private subnet and all those things I've added, and then I'll say and launch instance. Alright guys, so this instance is ready. Let's wait for some time to get it in the running state. Alright guys, so this is in the running state, right? So we have now this here. So now we created this private subnet. We already had the private subnet. We created this Amazon EC2 instance, and also we created this security group, which is for this Amazon EC2 instance, and which is filtering all the traffic. What is allowed, what is not allowed. So what we have configured here in this security group is that you only accept the traffic of SSH that comes from this Amazon EC2 instance, right? Because we have used, if you remember, we have used security group of this Amazon EC2. So this is basically here, or you can yeah, maybe you can do something like this. All right, so now let's move on, and then draw this. Then let's now look through the NAT gateway. Let's see if we can access the Amazon EC2 instance from this Amazon EC2. All right, so I'll go to this new instance. This is okay. So if I go to connect, so this is learning lecture private instance. So if I go to connect, and if I copy this, if I do this, you won't be able to connect from outside world, because that's the rule that we have. That's how we are restricting the traffic from outside world. So it will get time out. There is no point of doing this. But how can you log in? How can you log in? So that's what I was trying to make you understand. You can only log in into this EC2 instance only if you log in into this EC2 instance via this EC2 instance. So this is what acting as a jump server for us, right? Because this EC2 instance is deployed on VPC, and then you only allow here the traffic that comes from your VPC. And since this Amazon EC2 instance, which is public in public subnet, is inside your VPC, that's the reason you can access this EC2 instance, the private instance. All right. So what I'll do now, I'll go back and log into this EC2, the old instance. So this is the IP, right? This is the IP for this guy. So if you want to see, you can go to EC2 instances, and then you can go to learning lecture, this instance. If you select, so you will get this command, right? That's the command I'm using to get connect with my EC2 instance. If you go back, then you see this is the public IP address. In my last video, I explained you the difference between public IP and the elastic IP, right? So public IP will change once you shut down and restart it, and elastic it won't, just a static IP address. So I'll go and connect to this instance. Okay, so I'm logged in to this instance. All right, which instance? This instance. Okay, now I want to access this instance from this instance. So the public instance. I want to access my private instance to from my public instance, because I have allowed SSH traffic only from there, right? So I'll go back, and this is I go back. Okay, this is my private instance. I'll go. Now you see, I need to have, in order to connect, this is your private IP of private instance, right? Private EC2 instance. Because this is within your VPC, my public instance within VPC, so I will be able to use it. But I will need a k1.pem file. So what I'll do, I'll have to create one file, and then I already have this in my local. So I'll open K1. Okay, I'll open this file. 1 second. I'll go here, and then I will say k1.pem. Okay, I'll copy this, go back here, and you paste everything right here. Alright, so I've copied my K1 key to my public EC2 instance. I'll save it. If you see, I have this file here. So now I'll go and copy this command, which I'll be using to connect with the private EC2 instance. I'll click. You see now I'm able to, okay, it says too bad permission. So I'll say chmod 400, okay. Then I'll use this. Now, you see, now I'm able to get connect to my private EC2 instance. See, this is the IP address, right? 10.0.7.6, correct? I don't know what is the command to get this. If config. Yeah. Okay, so you see this is the IP address. Okay, so that's how I'm connecting to my private EC2 instance using my public EC2 instance, which is acting as a jump server for me, and people also call it best in box. Okay, but if you do www.google.com, you see I don't have internet access inside this box now. Right now I have to enable the internet access. All right, so now in the second part, this session, we will be enabling access to my private EC2 instance. How can I do that? If you go back, you will have to use NAT Gateway. All right, so now I will move on and create a NAT instance. You will have to go to VPC. And then you go to NAT Gateway, and then you create a NAT Gateway. You call it Learning Lecture NAT Gateway. Which subnet? Now you see, you cannot have the NAT Gateway into private subnet. There is no point of having your NAT Gateway into private subnet. Otherwise, and again, you don't have the connectivity. You will have to keep your NAT Gateway into the public subnet. Alright, so I'll go and then select my public subnet, this one. Alright, and I will have to allocate elastic IP. I already told you, right, in the beginning of video, what is elastic IP. So I'll create this NAT Gateway. Alright, so my NAT Gateway is ready, or not ready, it's in pending state. Again pending, let's wait for some time to get this ready. Alright, meanwhile this gets ready, it's taking time. So what I'll do, I'll create a route table and assign it to my, it's still ready, okay. Anyways, I'll go to route table. So currently if you see, I'll go back to my VPC and we will visualize this VPC, okay. You see this, the connection, the way this VPC has been organized is, it has two subnets. These two subnet has this single route table, which is public route table. Alright, now what I'll do, but this route table has the incoming traffic from internet to internet gateway and to your public subnet, within public subnet your EC2. I don't want this. What I want is, I want to have another route table where I will say for private subnet, you use the private route table where internet traffic should go to NAT Gateway, and from NAT Gateway to private subnet, and from private subnet to EC2 instance. Alright, so what I'll do, I'll go back and then I'll create a route table. I'll say private route table, and then let me move it here. I'll select the VPC. So this is my learning lecture VPC. Okay, and now I will create this route table. Alright, so now my route has been created. I'll have to associate a subnet. So what I'll do, I'll edit and dissociate this. I will only associate this subnet, my private, right? So I'll click a save association. So this route table, if you go here and then you see this private route table is only connected to, if I go back to my public route table and I'll go to, it only has my private public subnet. You see, this public route table only has association with the public subnet. All right, so these two guys has their different route tables. I'll go back. If you go back to route tables again, and if you click here, you will see, okay, explicit subnet association. Okay, I'll have to remove this. Okay, anyways, okay, we will move on, and then if there is an issue, then we'll try to fix it. Okay, subnet association, I have this. Now what I'll do, I will go and route propagation. I'll say, I'll edit a route and I'll say from internet you move that to your NAT gateway. Which NAT gateway? This learning lecture NAT gateway, right? This learning lecture NAT gateway. I'll say changes. Alright, so my route table has been updated. So all the traffic which is coming to this route table, this particular route table has been assigned to my private subnet. All traffic from here will be moving to this NAT gateway, from NAT gateway to my private subnet, and within private subnet to my EC2 instance. Alright, so I'll go back here and then I'll go back to VPC, and then from VPC I'll click this. Okay, so you see my public route table is now following this public route table, and private is following this private route table. Now this private route table is the traffic from this route table is being moved to my NAT gateway, and this traffic from my public segment moving to my internet gateway. Alright, so now what I'll do, I'll go back here, right? So this 7.6 is I'll go back to my EC2 instance. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, not launch instance. I'll go back. Yeah. I'll say connect. Okay, so I'll say 7.6.6. Now I think we are already inside, right? Now earlier your ping was not working, right? So if I do ping now to google.com, you see now your internet is flowing, right? All the network traffic from internet to your the incoming manner is flowing towards your EC2 instance inside your private subnet. So how we made it possible? We made it possible using your NAT gateway. All right, so if you go back to your VPC here, and then your VPC learning lecture VPC, you see that's how we made it possible, right? Your whatever coming in your VPC for your public subnet is the route table is going toward your internet gateway, and then private subnet is going toward your NAT gateway, right? So you see we just set up the security group, the Amazon EC2 instance in the private subnet, and then we created a route table specifically for this private subnet. If you go here, I just explain you, yeah, you see this route table, right? If you click on this route table, you will see we have defined a path where it explains whatever traffic from outside, you move it to your NAT gateway, but understand that traffic is coming from your internet gateway, right? Eventually this to your NAT gateway. All right, and then we assigned it to our private subnet. That's how we enable the traffic from internet to our private instance. But remember, the way we made it private is only allowing access from within my VPC. That's the reason we are able to get connect to my private EC2 instance using my public EC2 instance, because of the fact my public EC2 instance is deployed on my VPC. But from outside world, I cannot access this private subnet. That is the reason this public EC2 instance can also be called as jump server. So that's the overall exercise we have done as part of these two videos, part 1 and part 2. You can check out, I would recommend you to go through the part 1 video, then to part 2 video. And then in case you have any question, you can comment it down. You have any feedback, you can comment it down. If there is any topic that you want me to create a video, you can just comment it down. I'm available on LinkedIn. You can get me connect on the LinkedIn. You can post your queries, questions, message me. I'll be able to answer those. All right, guys. So thank you so much.